Greetings and hello. Gynocentric men enable women's social dominance by allowing them a platform to voice their hate while also pandering to them. This is due to the mothers initially brainwashing them into the mindset of a slave, one for the female sex and to pamper women, which comes at the expense of the man himself. This is to uphold female privilege and women's control over the male sex through emotional manipulation. It is one of the many forms of abuse that men have to endure from women. Women also control the family unit through the same tactics. So the myth that the father is in charge of everything is a BS lie. The common saying goes that men are the so-called head or representative for the household, while the woman is the neck or the one in charge who controls everything. As is common knowledge, women demand a provider man who will pamper and privilege them, while the man does all the work. Women deselect men who do not abide by their rules. While tradcons may vehemently disagree and say men run things, it is easily disproved by referencing back to the previous statement. Even though the husband may appear to be in charge from first glance, this is because he is the slave putting in the work to keep the household going. The actual person in charge is the woman who can do whatever she wants due to universal gynocentric support. Society has always supported women above men and catered specifically to women's demands. The household is no exception, so any tradcon strongman posturing by saying, quote, "I run my household," is a pathetic attempt in trying to make his servitude seem special. This posturing also is there to serve the woman, while also being a reflection of the dynamics between men and women. Women rule, men serve. Women propagate such posturing, and this is due to them wanting a guy that can provide the most for them, while the woman does the least amount of work. It's like a slave owner choosing a slave that won't rebel and will be fully loyal to the master. Therefore, the mentality of the majority of men who are gynocentric is going to reflect this dynamic to pander as much as possible to women. Men are firstly indoctrinated that they need a woman to find true happiness and contentment in life. And mothers are the primary pushers of this, since they are the ones who benefit from gynocentrism. This is a part of female social dominance in controlling society's narratives to fit their favor. Another front where men are bombarded with gynocentrism is from the media. The media shows the man being a slave for the woman and portrays it as a loving relationship instead of female-on-male abuse, therefore exploiting men's altruistic nature. This is universal, no matter what borders are crossed. Women are the ones who receive the benefit while men slave away and receive nothing. This is perpetuated by gaslighting on the women's part by emotional manipulation through small doses of affection and/or sex. This is all to keep up appearances, as the man-eating monster dresses itself in human skin. It is a trap that men are fed into, which indoctrinates them to slave away and tell them who their masters are. This illusion can be broken very simply once men internalize the facts of female nature. Men's desire is to be altruistic, which gets exploited by women's nature to want to be pampered and coddled. This can be seen everywhere in society as the man is always doing something for women, while women just sit back and receive privilege. This is human nature, and anyone who says that women are different in another place is lying. Human nature, thus female nature, is universal, and these dynamics play out in those places as well. Why is it that men have created all sorts of initiatives to privilege women, while women have only wanted to disenfranchise and subjugate men? This is the exact question that highlights the dynamics between the two sexes in all cases. Women who truly want to help men are very few and far between, and get shouted down and smeared by the female collective. Women as a whole want female privilege to be up and alive, which means abusing and exploiting men. Women have no qualms about this, because it benefits them, so they will gaslight men to their face, then backstab them, as men as a whole keep working to privilege women due to their gynocentric brainwashing. The idea that men need a partner is societal-wide gaslighting, which makes men doubt themselves. People, including men, can actually be very content without having any romantic connections. It works by mothers getting into the impressionable child minds of boys and brainwashing them into guilt-tripping themselves later on. A real metaphor would be adding a high-frequency pitch emitter into the coding of a self-aware robot, with the robot thinking that the high-pitched squeal it hears is normal. It indeed takes a while to undo the self-loathing that mothers and women as a whole instill into men, but it can be done with recognizing that you, the man listening to this video, is a worthy person who does not need to be disposable. However, a different thought process goes on for the gynocentric men who take their mother's hatred of the male sex to heart and feel responsible for it. They are the ones who cope with the high-pitched squeal in their ear by saying, "At least it gives me some company," or other strong man posturing. Except that squeal will end up damaging their brain if they do not find a way to turn it off. Sadly, the overwhelming majority of men are gynocentric and have been successfully gaslit by women into thinking they don't matter. This is all in hopes of one day finding a woman that will affirm and take away the doubts that their mother set there in the first place. This will never happen, as it is against women's interests in keeping men in their gender roles. Because of this, relationships are always meant to fall apart as the woman latches on to a man who wants to bribe her, like a leech, and continues sucking him. The only difference is that some men have a faster red blood cell turnover rate, or have enough resources to keep giving to the woman. The only way that men's psychological desire to be with women will end is if the pro-male message gets out. Once men understand the real dynamics between men and women, and thus get out of the self-loathing mindset that has been imposed on them, only then will they be ready to fight to be treated like human beings. The worst part is that not only do these gynocentric men pose a threat to themselves, but also to the men around them. Since they are not pro-male, they are willing to throw their fellow man under the bus at the word of a woman. They are also ready and willing attack dogs for the female sex, in order to keep reinforcing female privilege. This is what both feminist men and tradcon men are, as they are willing to drop everything and attack other men. This is low-life behavior, but is sadly the result of gynocentrism being universally embedded due to women's demands of men. Because of this, men's issues gain little to no traction. Men are thus kept in this state as a result of women's sexual selection by proxy. Gynocentric men are the ones who make other men suffer by being agents for women and tearing down and attacking pro-male men. This is because women want everything to be focused on them, as to uphold their privilege. Therefore they deselect and demonize men who do not fully pander to them, leaving men as a whole with two options. The first option is to keep pandering to women and focusing on giving them more and more privilege. This comes at the expense of demonizing fellow men and attacking them. It enables the gynocentric status quo of men being disenfranchised, while women gain more and more leverage to attack men. Men will suffer more and more, and every man will eventually be completely powerless, but to be subjected to the demands of women. The remaining few rights that men have will be further stripped. It will be a slow and agonizing death for male freedom and sovereignty. This is what will happen if gynocentrism prevails, and is the grand goal of female mate selection. Both feminists and tradcons are on this path as they bow before women and spit on the rights of their own sex, because women as a whole demand them to. This is the road to which all men who want to pander to women are driving on, as they will take the rest of the male sex with them at the behest of their princesses. The second choice that men as a whole have is to become pro-male and disavow any pandering and worship of women. This means completely focusing on pro-male interests and seeing their sex as human beings. For this to happen, men have to abandon and leave behind any wants and desires of being with women and see women for what they truly have to offer, which is male slavery and abuse disguised through gaslighting and lies. Unfortunately, men will need to have some self-respect and consideration for their own interests, which the majority of men who are gynocentric lack. However, if men do get themselves together and see the common enemy, the condition for men will improve by over a magnitude. Men's issues and concerns will actually be taken seriously instead of being dismissed and laughed at. Men will no longer be gaslit by a gynocentric society who wants them to be useful to women, then die. Men will not be seen as tools whose only purpose is to continue stripping themselves of their essence until their mind is purely filled with being a gynocentric attack dog. Men will finally be treated as human beings instead of slaves, meant to fulfill the demands of women. This won't happen until men recognize that they are oppressed on a universal scale and take action. The first roadblock that men will have to face is the internalized misandric gaslighting that society has heaped on them. This is very hard at first as it flies in the face of decades of reinforcement, but it can be done. Secondly, men will have to organize on a huge level to fight for their rights, and not hop around on issues to pander to women, which has always been the status quo. Once this second step is underway, the female privilege that has been ingrained everywhere will start to slowly be chipped away at. Because women demand male usury and abuse of the male sex for their privilege, men have to take it upon themselves to fight for their rights. Gynocentric men, both male feminists and tradcons, which make up 99% or more of the male population, are only damaging their sex, and pro-male men will have to put up a fight for any hope of the pro-male message getting through. Women's demands will always stay the same in that they deselect men who won't privilege them. Men have to internalize this and start working together to be treated as people and not slaves for women. This message needs to spread, as this dynamic between men and women is the same everywhere, and if nothing changes, men everywhere will continue suffering under the thumb of gynocentrism.